Hey everyone, it's Roxas Colite, author of The Prophecy of the 12 and the Knights of Stone Shadows series, and I am so sorry that I promised to make a video every week, and it's been about 3 weeks since the last video I posted. I will try to get back into it. Life has been very crazy, but today I have another video for you all that I hope that you will enjoy. I've been writing since I was about 10 years old. I remember getting a notebook from my grandparents. It had this fun, cool cover design on it, and I sat on their front porch and just tried to write a story. It wasn't very good, but most of the time, 10-year-olds do not write very well. I definitely did not have a basic grasp on grammar yet, but I did eventually evolve. I don't have too many of my first stories remaining. I think most of them were either thrown away because little me didn't know how to hold on to stuff. And one of them I do remember, I spilled water all over it, and I was heartbroken because I hadn't even finished writing it yet. And I was just so devastated to see everything dissolve on those pages. I do, however, have the first series that I wrote. It's in a collection of notebooks, and it's not very good, but it kind of was the basis for me building upon my writing. And I think if we go back, it helps to show the evolution of my creativeness and my passion for writing. So today, that's actually what I'm going to show you. I've got the notebooks. I've tabbed this one specifically. This is the first book. Um, and I am going to share it with you today. Throughout this video, I'm going to be talking about different sections that I have tabbed in the notebook. I'm going to read it. I'm going to talk about what I did well, things that I did terribly, and I'm going to talk about how my writing has changed through the years. Without further ado, here we go. First, I'm going to tell you about this cover here. As you can see, there are stickers on it, butterfly stickers, Abby Dawn stickers, and if you don't know Abby Dawn, it was a clothing line by Avril Lavigne back in the early 2000s that I absolutely loved. I also wrote on it the title was very stupid and complex, and I turned it into this acronym, TWOOOSWA. It was really ridiculous. I do not know what originally made me come up with that. I thought it was so funny. I had a couple of friends who laughed at the idea. They thought it was silly, but I still went with it. I wrote nearly 7 books for this series. So, the first book in the series, I titled it Explaining. And it's very hard to tell. You can't really see this because it's faded, but I wrote a whole bunch of little notes about the series on the front cover. But it was just something. So I titled this first book Explaining. It was the first book of a 7-series book, and I will say I did not fully complete all 7 books. I got to the 7th book, I started writing it, and then I got an idea for another story, and that completely took over my high school years. This was all my middle school years, but my high school years, totally different story, and I kind of just left this one to sit and collect dust for a little while. But I'm sharing it here today. So I'm going to start with reading the first sentence. And I wrote some notes while I was tabbing this, and I wrote that it was a bad introduction. It says, Flo Amarillo High School is a private school for the arts. Terrible first sentence. It doesn't tell you anything about the characters that you're going to see. It doesn't give you basically anything except for a sort of setting. And I don't know, I just really don't think I did well when I wrote that first sentence. Also, for some reason, the pages have a blue tint to them, and I think that is because I spilled water on this, but somehow it did not deteriorate, which is miraculous. This series has survived since I was in seventh grade. Was it seventh grade that I started this? I'll argue about that later. um, let's see a little bit more. The introduction of the main character. It talks about how the school is a great artistic thing, and then it introduces the main character right away, and it says Tara Notil was great at it all. And I wrote a little note next to that saying Mary Sue. And in a way, as I went further in the series, she was a bit of a Mary Sue. She was never really a self insert character, but she was definitely a Mary Sue who could just do everything that everybody else could do. It was not very good. I don't think I really gave you guys any sort of premise about what this story is about. It was about a group of magical teenagers, which is something I'm very good at writing. It's something that just was always part of who I was, and I think it was based off of all of the stories that I read about coming of age magical teenager stories. So many of those. And this was about them fighting darkness, so tropey, so tropey, but it still holds a very special place in my heart. Um, this sentence says the only person she was close to was her dad, who had adopted her when she was 3 years old. So I set up a very stereotypical orphan storyline. The main character is an orphan. That fun trope that is constant, the absent parent trope. Um, I don't talk about her father throughout much of this. In fact, it wasn't until I rewrote this story that I actually gave her any real family and information on her family, because I got more ideas throughout, and I just kind of left most of the parents out of this story, which again, that is a big trope in most fantasy, but it's hardly acknowledged why the parents aren't doing anything in this story. Um, this little gem here. After school, Tara did her homework and started dinner for her and her father. He was what I wrote over the tab. He was working late tonight and wouldn't be back till 8. She left the food in the oven, went online, and logged into Instant Messenger. And at the time, there was a lot of like stories on different forums and whatnot. I didn't use a lot of them, but I did use like I don't know fanfiction.net. Um, where they had these like chat log stories, and I thought I would incorporate that as a middle schooler, especially because I was going into chat rooms all the time and just logging on, talking to people, saying random stuff. And that is what these chat rooms are all about in these stories. There's pages upon pages of these awful chats that don't make any sense, and then they don't exactly move the story forward. There's some exposition in it. There's like a little bit of dialogue. There's some character introductions, but they're not very good. Um, and I just I don't know why I was so hung up on it at the time. Probably because I was a middle schooler and I thought it was cool to be in chat rooms. But there's pages of this stuff, and it is not very good. So the next part says she had to sneak out without getting caught. She quietly went downstairs, made a clone of herself, and went out the front door. And I think as I'm looking back at this, it's a reference to, I don't know if any of you ever read the Witch graphic novel series. I absolutely was obsessed with it. I still have on my bookshelf behind me here several of the graphic novels just on display on my bookshelf because I love that series. And in that, they make these astral drops. I believe that's what they called them, which were basically clones of themselves. And they could like walk away, and the clone had all their memories and um, could do anything that they could do, and would follow their instructions for everything. I don't know. I'm going into a tangent about that, but that is what I reference here because I wrote all the stuff that I remembered from everything. Um, that was the first chapter. That first chapter, not very good. But um, mind you, they were all very short. All of the chapters in this, I fit a whole book. It's not even a whole book because there's probably less than 40,000 words that I wrote in this. But again, I was a middle schooler, and in my mind, I was like, I could always go back and edit it. And when I type it up, it'll be longer. And that was my excuse for it when I was in middle school. But all right, we'll continue with chapter 2. And oh boy, it does not get much better. I feel bad because I keep just tearing myself apart right now. There's some things that I did really well. I just have to find them. Okay. Chapter 2 has a lot of that chat stuff that I mentioned I wrote, and I put a little note on the side that says a lot of this stuff could be used as dialogue and the characters could have actually had conversations. And that is so true. A lot of the stuff that I put here could have been, but it also is a lot of the really random stuff. Uh, it's so silly. And I used to write, I'm looking now, I used to write little stuff in the margins because I wrote a lot of this while I was sitting in my 7th grade classes and not instead of doing work, I would write in the margins or I would write pieces of the story. And in the top here in the margin, it says group hug, and I have no idea why it says group hug, but um, I'm sure that this is not the only thing in this notebook that has anything in the margins at all. So in the middle of chapter 2, I start this next part that says, Tara was right. She wasn't in school the next day. Gabe was happy that she wasn't mad at him. Maybe he thought he'll visit her after school to see how she's doing. Mind you, not great writing at all, but this is where I started doing head hopping. And I was notoriously bad at head hopping in this series. I went from person to person so frequently that if you were trying to make any sense of this series, you would not be able to because it goes from one person's thoughts to the next so quickly. I'd say I did a lot better when I started writing my second series with the head hopping because I very much like focused myself and said we are only sticking with one character per chapter. If we are going to move to a different character's point of view, we will go to another chapter for that. We're not going to head hop. And um, I definitely did not do that for this series. It's so bad. I apologize. I have not been reading full passages from this. I've just been reading short bits. And it's because a lot of it is just so bad. And it's not that I'm embarrassed about it because it's helped me grow. It's that I do not want to subject you to this. However, I did make a note here that I wanted to read this whole section here just to show that I was really bad at the show don't tell. I was bad at writing dialogue, and I was bad at gauging kind of emotions of characters. They were kind of all over the place. Anyway, I'm going to read this section here. Gabe was freaking out. What if everything failed? What if nobody liked it? What if his helpers didn't show up? Ding dong! He ran to the door just in case it was a guest. Oh my gosh. I accidentally put a Q and it says quest, but I know it's supposed to be guest. Anyway, he ran to the door just in case it was a guest who came early. It was Bobby. You scared me, Bobby. I thought you were one of the early guests, Gabe said. Ricky's on his way. His mom had to drop his little sister off at her friend's house, Bobby said. Oh, I have to stop there because this is the only time in the series that it is mentioned that Ricky has a little sister, and I completely destroyed that idea so quickly. It's like that is absolutely an inconsistency on my part because later on it's like he doesn't have any siblings. So anyway, Ricky's on his way. His mom had to drop his little sister off at her friend's house, Bobby said. Mitch called and said that he was going to be here at 4:10, Gabe said. Tara and Mandy both said that they were on their way, and Kyan and Donnie didn't say much, just I'll be there. So this is another moment where I'm with Gabe, and then immediately the next paragraph starts with Tara and her dad were pulling into the driveway. And so, again, head hopping like crazy. But this just goes to show that, of course, I was not the best writer when I was a middle schooler. The pacing in this is really terrible. And again, it's because I wrote it in one singular notebook. This story could, if it were well written, easily be in several different notebooks, but it is not so well written. But I'm on chapter 6 now. There's 12 chapters in this story, I believe. I think later on I went in and tried to write a 13th chapter because I needed some more information going into the second book. But I really, the pacing is just not great. They were running through a dark passage with only a few lights. Mandy kept bumping into Donnie, and Donnie finally said, Mandy, if you keep bumping into me, it's too dark for you. Take my hand and you won't bump into anything. Mandy didn't hesitate to take his hand. She was tired of bumping into him. His hand was warm. She blushed when she took hold of it. He blushed too. She only ever thought about Oh my gosh, she only ever thought about herself and Ricky as a couple, spelled couple wrong. But now she was weighing the possibility of herself and Donnie. I did spell weighing correctly. Um, yeah, I wrote a little tab on this that says this section is funny to read because this was the first draft of this. Like I said, first anything really. It's not good, and I like mention this weird little romance thing that does go on later on, but there is later on no mention of this character ever having any romantic feelings for another character. So many inconsistencies. I don't get what's going on, Ricky said. Don't worry, Ricky. I don't either, another boy said. Oh my gosh. My tab here that I wrote says me too. Because as I was rereading this, I was also very confused on what was happening. And yes, there is so much to be confused about. As I think I mentioned earlier, I would often have these notebooks open during class. And here's a good example, as I have a bunch of math problems on this page. I'm not sure what the relevance is at all, but 6 times a minus 2 equals 12. That was the problem that I wrote down. And I have a whole bunch of other things here that's just written down. I can't even say I don't know why there's math problems. I know why there's math problems. I was not the best student and I didn't like math. So I would be writing a lot during math class, and when I would get caught, I would quickly shift and start writing math problems onto my notebook page, which this is good because this happens to be the end of the chapter. I could always go and live with my uncle and Matt, but my uncle lives in the town over from you guys. I'd like to be able to visit you, Zach said. Matt said he's going to visit us during the summer. He said he was going to visit with Jasper and his brother, Bobby said. You can visit me anytime. My sister won't bug me if I have a friend over. Just IM me before you come over. Again, mentioning the IMs, instant messengers. And oh my gosh, it's nice because I'm using a lot of dialogue. In my next series, I thought that I used dialogue too much, and so I cut back so much dialogue. I did not focus on dialogue. But I did an okay job at least trying to get a sense of how the characters talk to each other. Again, it's not very good, but I still tried really hard to get at least that kind of sense of the characters talking and interacting. Um, and this part right here was, by the way, this is just chapter 10. Um, this was supposed to be like the way to segue into the next book because, again, I only wrote 12 chapters and each book was about 12 chapters. And again, they were not very good. So I reached the end of that story and um, I had to go back and just count how many pages of full instant messaging they did. And there's 27 pages of them instant messaging each other. Instant messages that could have been dialogue in the story. Um, but 27 pages is incredible when the story is 12 chapters long with roughly 6 pages per chapter. I continue doing some instant messaging in the second book, which I have right here. But I think I dropped it in book 3. I think it's just in the first 2 books. We'll see. I might share more of this story with you guys if you guys want to know more about it. But I think I've come a long way since writing in middle school. I hope that my writing has improved. I'd say that it has, and maybe I'm biased because I'm the one who wrote it. But anyway, I'm so glad you guys tuned in for this video. I hope to see you guys in the next one. And I promise I will try to post one video per week like I said I would. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.